that we headed to Africa and it rained on us. We've come to the Nürburgring and it's dry and sunny. Something screwy in that. That's definitely not the way it's supposed to work. Sabine Schmitz was saying that she was hoping that wet weather would even out the playing field a bit, rob some of the other drivers of their extreme pace in the World Touring Car field and allow her track knowledge maybe to help her keep her speed up. Well, as they always say, be careful what you wish for. I don't think we're going to get rain in our main race, but I think Sabina is going to get a lot of rain in the 24 hours that follows. Jose Maria Lopez is our DHL pole sitter for the main race here. Round 10 of the season. Norbert Michaelis will line up alongside him. Then Tom Chilton, third on the grid with Nicky Katzberg's Lada. Rob Huff to fifth, and Mehdi Benani up to sixth. Frederick Ekblom will start seventh. Gabriel Queenie up to 8th position from what would have been 12th on the grid. 9th is Ugo Valente, 10th place starter Sabine Schmitz, 11th and 12th behind her Ugo Valente, and then John Philippi and Ted Björk, Grugo de Moustier in front of them. So we have lost 4 cars from the leading group, and I'm not sure who the 4th one is. We know we didn't have an Ivan Muller, we know we didn't have a Tom Coronel, and we know we didn't have a Thiago Montero, all of whom were supposed to start in the top 10, but how have the guys outside the top 10 moved up 4 places? Frederick Ekblom is at the back of the grid, that's why. The number 62 car, no, that's Ted Björk is at the back of the grid, number 62. So Ted Björk, they had to obviously take the car out of Parc Fermé. So Björk at the back. So that is why everybody else who was behind what should have been a 5th place starting Volvo has moved up 1 spot, and he is down at the back in 14th position. Okay, so that's what fooled us. Grid sheet I have was published at 9 o'clock this morning, and of course quite a lot has changed since then. So Richard, clearly they needed the time to get his car ready to go. He is ready to go, and as he said, the car looked pretty quick and pretty racy right at the beginning, and then had to pop into the pits with that engine issue.
Yeah, I think he was definitely on for a top 5, and then obviously with the issue with Montero and Muller, probably would have found himself on the podium had he continued, but that's not the first time we've seen some engine unreliability from the Volvo team. Still struggling to get on top of that. I think that's probably the 3rd engine change we've seen from the Volvo team already this season.
Yeah, I don't know if they had to change it. He said it was an oil dam. It certainly looked like oil was leaking from somewhere onto something hot. There was lots of smoke coming from under the bonnet rather than from out of the exhaust. So it may have been relatively straightforward to sort. Clearing the grid, which brings us into the final stages of countdown in our pre-race formation. Up towards the sharp end of the grid, Union flags on. Tom Chilton's car lining up 3rd behind Jose Maria Lopez, our DHL pole sitter. And again, Tom, having finished 2nd behind Pachito in race 1, would really dearly love to do at least the same again here. Norbert Michaelis might be a big factor. The castle of the Dukes of Nürburg, after which the town below it is named, and around which threads the Nürburgring, one of the world's great racetracks. The Nordschleife, the venue for round 10 of the FIA World Touring Car Championship, our main race of the afternoon at the Grüne Hölle.
The most exciting experience I ever had in motor racing is Nordschleife.
Definitely the biggest challenge I probably had since I joined WTCC, and to be honest, one of the biggest challenges in motorsport.
I suggest don't look around the track, because if you start looking around the track, you can have fear.
High-speed corners. You have so many high-speed corners.
length of it, the tires never last so long, of course.
In Nordschleife, you have 27 kilometers of, literally zero safety, zero margin for error.
I respect these kind of circuits because they are dangerous and you can hurt yourself.
To me, and I think to a lot of other drivers, the Nordschleife is number one.
Since the day I left last year on Nordschleife, I've been waiting again to come back.
Well, there's some of the drivers' thoughts, and you kind of have to echo those sentiments wherever you have come from in motor racing, whatever your knowledge and your history is. The Nürburgring is up there with Le Mans, the Indianapolis 500, with the Grand Prix circuit at Monaco as one of the legendary tracks. But of all of them, it is probably still the rawest, most difficult, most dangerous of the lot. It can't be sanitized in the way that a modern circuit can be. It's just what it is, and it's such a phenomenal challenge.
If you look at Monaco this weekend, you'll see the circuit's changed such a huge amount from the 50s, whereas this circuit, although they've made huge strides to make it as safe as they possibly can, the circuit is by and large still the same, and that's why it's so legendary, because whenever we think of the Nordschleife, we think of Jim Clark, Jackie Stewart, Niki Lauda, and that's where the legend was created, and it's not really changed. It's not really changed, not in any fundamental way.
No. If you brought Rudolf Caracciola back, who won the first Grand Prix in 1927, he would still know his way around.
Yeah.
And that's not the case at Monza or Silverstone or, Ascari, the guys that raced in those tracks in the 50s. They would notice phenomenal differences. Now, of course, you look at footage of the 60s and the 70s, even when Niki Lauda was criticising the track for lack of safety, there were no barriers in most of it. It was, go off, you're in the trees. That was the way racing tracks were. You look at Spa in the 50s and 60s, that was the same. Go off, you're in the trees. And Le Mans was exactly the same. Now there is that margin for error. I mean, where we just saw Thiago Montero's crash, where Rob Huff and Hugo Valente and all the other guys that have had incidents, and Tom Coronel, they were saved by the barriers and the strength of modern racing cars. In the 30s or 60s, you'd have pitched off into the trees in a combustible, thin, flimsy tube, nightmare, and your biggest enemy after the trees was fire. Now, you are in a protective cell, but in modern motor racing, there is nowhere that is out to get you as much as this place, and it's dry and sunny and daylight.
And despite all of the safety advancements that have been made over the years, the ribbon of tarmac, the actual flow of the track is by and large the same.
Yeah.
And you can't say that of Monaco or even Indy, although it's still a big circle, a big bowl.
Yeah.
It used to be run on bricks.
Well, yes,
so,
exactly.
The turns that we have here and the feature corners and the layout that we have is the same as we had with those legends we just spoke about.
Yeah.
And that's really rare in motor racing. If you came up with this concept now of a road that was going to run through the forest for 25 kilometres, there's no way you'd get a project like that off the ground. And it's amazing what they've been able to keep in the heritage of this event, and to try and make it as safe as they can, and to just enjoy the racing like we do.
Well, he talks again about parallels globally, and the only real parallel, and in fact it even dwarfs the Nordschleife in terms of its sheer size and length, is the mountain course of the TT circuit on the Isle of Man. And again, you go back to the great riders in history, the Jeff Dukes, the Giacomo Agostinis, and the John Surtees, and right up to the present day with the John McGuinnesses. It's the same challenge. Those phenomenal high speeds through towns and villages, and apexing on stone walls and trees and telephone boxes and all of that. That's the same as this. You can't. You either go there and accept it for what it is, or you don't go there, and that's the same deal. It is a track that's going to be the ultimate reward, but sometimes you will pay a fairly high price for that.
Yeah, and that's probably slightly the controversy with the tyres at the moment and some of the discussions with the driver. It's one thing to risk everything going around this circuit and doing what you can, but it's another thing that you can have a random failure that puts you in the wall at high speed that's nothing to do with your driving ability or a mistake that you've made or whatever else. So, yeah, I can understand why some of the drivers are a bit uneasy ready for this second race.
Well, if you don't feel a tightening of the stomach, a shortening of breath and a sweaty, clammy feeling when you're sitting on the grid of the Nürburgring, you need to summon a doctor immediately, because you are clearly clinically dead. If you're not worrying about what lies in front of you, then you're definitely not in the right frame of mind to be racing on the Nordschleife. And I'm sure all these guys are feeling as calm as they can be, but if you were to take a blood sample now and measure just what percentage is red corpuscles and what percentage is adrenaline, I'm not sure there's many times where you will find a higher adrenaline percentage. Rob Huff lying out 5th on the grid, Nicky Katzberg in 4th place, and then the top 3, 2 of whom have already finished. In fact, no, all 3 of whom were our podium finishers from the opening race. Tom Chilton, who finished in 2nd place, lines up 3rd on the grid here. Norbert Mikulich, who claimed the final podium spot for Honda, lines up 2nd. And our opening race winner, Jose Maria Lopez, looks a shoe-in for the double, but at any other racetrack, here, nothing's a given.
Yeah, maybe because his 2 main championship rivals in Montero and Muller are not starting this race, and maybe just because of the punctures, Lopez will be under slight instruction to not push too hard, and maybe Chilton can stay with him and make a race of it.
Well, we look at Ivan, you know, we think of Ivan as being his main championship rival, but Ivan was only 6th in points coming here. So Pachito's main championship rivals include this guy. Norby is 4th in the points, Rob Huff is 3rd, Thiago Montero 2nd before the first of our races. And all of that has closed up because, of course, although Huff scored, Norby scored more, Thiago didn't score. So some of the pursuers are getting closer, but Thiago didn't score, and Ivan in 6th position. Really, unless Pachito decides to go and tend his garden for the rest of the season, it's unlikely that anybody is going to get close enough to stop him winning a 3rd championship. But this is motor racing, and anything can still happen. And at this track, of all of them, anything can happen. So a depleted grid with 3 cars missing, work still going on the barriers. They're replacing the metal strips. They are reseating the posts as well. And again, you know, these are all, the whole point of these barriers is that they're not solid, is that they bend, they move away and absorb the impact. They stop the car going through and plunging down a hillside or into the trees or into the crowd, but they do flex. I mean, you see that in the slow motion, how much the barrier moves, how much the posts move, and of course that means you then have to move them back and plant them again so that you've still got that safety margin.
And of course, where somebody goes off is generally a likely point for someone else to go off as well. So, you know, you end up wearing out bits of the barrier in certain circuits, certain corners. So it's very important that that safety barrier is repaired, and shouldn't anybody else be unlucky to meet it in the next race, they're going to enjoy the same deformation that Thiago did.
Well, over many years of racing here, I'm sure there aren't many new places to go off that have ever been invented, so that's why the track workers here and the organisers have very good stocks of barriers at certain prestige points ready for replacement. The grid is being cleared for the final time for the FIA World Touring Car Championship. It is our 5th race weekend of 12 this season and the 10th round of the series for 2016. On the DHL pole for our main race here at the Nürburgring in Germany is Jose Maria Lopez. Pachito, our race 1 winner, and he is our double world champion and points leader in 2016. Now, for the first time this season, he has won an opening race. His 3 previous victories have all come in main races, in the season opener at Paul Ricard in France, at the Slovakia ring and at the Hungaro ring. In the main race in Morocco, he finished only in 2nd position. That's the first time he has not won a main race all season, and victory there went to Rob Huff, who starts in 5th position, just down there on the grid. But a DHL pole for Jose Maria Lopez with a stunning record lap, 2 seconds inside his previous best, sees him start ahead of Norbert Michelitz, Tom Chilton and Nicky Katzberg. The guys that should have started 2nd and 3rd, Ivan Muller and Tom Coronel, both crashed out in race 1. Rob Huff, Mehdi Benani, Frederick Ekblom and Gabriele Tarquini all move up the order. Ted Björk has been dropped to the back of the grid after taking the car out of Parc Ferme. In the car that should have started 10th, Thiago Montero, he had a crash in race 1 and will not start either. So those outside the top 10 on the original main race starting grid have all moved up 4 spots, and Björk's Volvo will start on the final spot on the grid, but the car was looking quick in practice. Carlos Tavares, the boss of Peugeot Citroën, the enormous conglomerate, chatting with Alessandro Mariani about potential risks of the race lying in front of us. Well, we start on the grid at the Grand Prix circuit of the Nürburgring, but our race here this weekend not confined to the Grand Prix circuit. Nicky Katzberg failed to get away strongly in race 1 again, doesn't get off the dummy grid. Thiago Montero, who was taken to the Infield Medical Centre, severely winded after his crash, has been sent to the local hospital for checkups. I imagine he will have a CT scan just to make sure there are no underlying fractures that they need to worry about. It was a big impact, a very big high-speed impact, flat in top gear. It was on the passenger side, front right-hand side of his Honda, but deceleration that rapid, the body decelerates last of all inside the car. The car all basically just stops in one go, and it's the frangible soft elements inside, i.e. the driver, that tend to take the hit.
So Rob, just for your information, so there was a proposal by Gabriele to make an agreement, but it's over because there was not enough time to manage an agreement, and I have no information about the clerk of the course or race control or FIA.
Well, I wonder what Gabriele was trying to get an agreement about.
I think that's going to be about probably mandating a starting pressure or something else like that regarding the tyres, but it's very, very difficult to get that at the best of times when you have an entire evening of meetings between all the teams, the organisers, race control, technical, the tyre manufacturer. So to try and achieve that in 5 minutes on the grid is almost impossible.
And then somebody's got to check it. You know, remember the dramas with Formula One money no object and tyre pressures last year, starting tyre pressures at Mercedes and so on. You know, Pirelli have a system in Formula One of pre-measuring the pressure, but then they have to release the tyres to go onto the car to go onto the grid. And so within that, even were Yokohama now to say you absolutely must start with, I don't know, 2.1 bar, not 1.9 or whatever it would be, they then got to go and check the tyre pressure on each of the dozen cars on each of the tyres. There just aren't enough minutes in the procedure or pre-race procedure, and there aren't enough bodies to check it. And then what happens if one's wrong?
No, I agree, and of the 10 tyre failures we've had, only 2 of them have been today, so it's not really an excuse. It's just that we've seen a particularly big incident with Thiago, and we all hope that he's okay, but you know, likewise, the arguments we've just talked about, the reasons for not doing it, you know, come tomorrow, if we did have the horrendous situation that someone was hurt, we'd all, you know, it doesn't sound very strong either. So no. It is a very difficult situation.
Jose Maria Lopez leading the field to the grid. And we're hearing now that Gabriele Tarquini had suggested holding the main race only on the Grand Prix circuit, but there was not enough time to get everybody to agree, and that might not even have cured what potential tyre problems there might be. What it would have meant was there was a lot more runoff area were there to be tyre issues.
I think it would solve the tyre issues, to be honest, Martin.
Cars on the grid at the Nürburgring, ready for 3 laps of the Nordschleife. The main race here in Germany. Jose Maria Lopez on pole position. Tom Chilton out of his grid marks alongside. Behind him on row 2, Norbert Michelis on the outside of the front row, closest to the pit wall. Tom Chilton is definitely not in his grid spot though. Nicky Katzberg lines up 4th for Lada, 5th Rob Huff, 6th Mehdi Benani. Away we go again, a very short change on the lights. Great start from Gregoire de Moustier, swerves around Sabine Schmitz, who did not get hooked up. Norby's inside, Pachito for the lead into the first corner, and he'll shut the door. Block pass from Michelitz, he's got the lead. Chilton 3rd, Huff up to 4th ahead of Benani. Then Volvo, de Moustier got tagged by, not sure, but Ferenc Fitcher and Sabine Smits both got by him. It might have been Ted Björk in the Volvo because he's made progress. He goes by John Philippi. It wasn't because he was nowhere near the back of the Bustier. But we have a Honda in the lead again. However, Lopez may be in front before we get off the Grand Prix loop. He's already sizing up a run, trying to get around the outside of Norbert Michelis and Rob Huff, similarly trying to pass Tom Chilton for 3rd. Here comes Lopez.
Lopez desperate to try and get ahead on the Grand Prix loop because he knows that it's going to be so much more difficult once we get onto the Nordschleife, and it looks like he's done it.
Yeah, great pass through the Schumacher S's, and Huff is all over the back of Chilton for 3rd place, wants to get up behind Norby and get the 2 Hondas onto the podium, try and work together to stop Lopez escaping, but Chilton defending hard. Now he's going to drift out wide. Huff with a chance to make a run up the inside, up to the chicane. Will he get alongside? No, he doesn't. Has to tuck back in, right behind Chilton. Is he going to use the slipstream?
That Citroen's just got so many horses, and obviously that's quite a big steep hill up there. It doesn't look it on television, but it's very steep.
Behind, the Volvo goes around the outside of the Lada. Can't get by Valente though. Frederick Ekblom had a really good look, but it didn't work for him. Lopez leads them out onto the Nordschleife, over the bridge and through the first left, through into the Hatzenbach. And now is where Lopez will pick up his skirts and run away and leave Michelis to try and deal with Chilton. And again, Chilton having a really good weekend here on the Nordschleife. The car's been very quick in his hands.
Yeah, Lopez will want to push now on the Nordschleife and try and build up a bit of a gap. Make sure that when we get onto the long straight section that Honda's not in his slipstream.
Valente behind Tarquini. I'm sure that Ugo would love to get by Gabrielli, and we already heard from Gabrielli that he's not going to be taking any risks here, so Gabrielli will be playing middle and leg and sitting in the middle of the road and not ragging the car, because he wants to make sure that he walks away from this one without any ill effects.
Now Gabriel, let me pass. He's not going to push on the Nordschleife.
That's exactly what you would expect from the driver behind. Young and full of speed, and he knows that Gabrielli has got room when they get onto one of the long straights. And here, maybe on the run down to Arenberg through Schwedenkreuz, it's very quick. But if Gabrielli leaves the door open on the inside, and he doesn't, that would have been a great opportunity for Ugo to go through.
The other thing that Gabrielli knows is that it's highly probable that a lot of the tyre issues we have are caused by big compressions in the early part of the lap when there's not much pressure in the tyre. So he knows he's got to stay off the curb. So even though Gabrielli said he's probably going to be cautious, it pays to be more cautious at this stage. Any big curb strikes at the moment can really hurt you on the last lap when you have a puncture.
Lopez leads by about 2/3 of a second from Norbert Michelis. And this is the move that put him into the lead. Classic Grand Prix circuit move. Around the outside, takes the line in the Schumacher S's, and that's all climbing the hill. And as you said, that's ponies. The Citroen using its horsepower to out-accelerate the Honda up the hill, and Norby had nowhere left to go. 3rd place still Tom Chilton. You can just see his Citroen there. Rob Huff in 4th position. And Chilton will really not want to give away a 2nd podium the weekend. Don't forget, he is currently the top-scoring WTCC trophy driver in the race as well. Mehdi Benani back in 6th or 7th, got a bit shuffled in the pack at the start.
He's outgunned Benani all weekend. He's been very, very strong, Tom. Probably his best weekend of the season so far in terms of pace.
Starting to run down towards Adenau. Frederick Ekblom up behind Ugo Valente. He would like to get by Gabriele Tarquini as well. Down over the bridge that leads, or that covers the road leading from Adenau up through the forest, and then starting this big climb as well. Fast right-left sequence coming up in front of us, and still really nowhere for Valente to try and get by Tarquini. Gabrielli just leaving himself enough room everywhere. The black and white car, Sabine Schmitz, and behind her Ted Björk from the back of the grid. So Björk did make a good start, and he really enjoys this Nordschleife. Ekblom in front with more experience as well.
It's literally like racing down a country lane.
Yeah, scare electrics in your garden. It's so fast in so many places. Yeah, they're in top gear here all the way. Really working hard. Gabriele Tarquini just staying in front. You can just see the yellow car there for Ugo Valente. Then Fredrik Ekblom, Sabine Schmitz and Ted Björk. So those four all being, their pace being defined, their ultimate top speed being defined by Tarquini. Tarquini might start to close up a little on the group in front once we pop out of the carousel. Well, the leader starting to ease away, Jose Maria Lopez. You can see now maybe a second and a half in front of Norbert Michelitz. Then Tom Chilton in third position. And the start, great start by Norby. Another shocker from Nicky Katzberg, which is why the other Volvos looked like they were going to get around him at the beginning.
I wonder if Katzberg has a clutch problem. They're doing a lot of clutch bleeding in the garage before race one, and there's clearly a lot of talk about it. Because he's also got away very slowly at the practice starts, the formation laps as well. So I wonder if he has a bit of a clutch issue.
De Bustier got turned around. John Philippi's car on board with Ugo Valente. And of course, Gabriele Tarquini, such a good standing starter as always. And that was a real problem for Ugo because Gabriele got to the front of the Lada queue. Ugo trying to go around Fredrik Ekblom, little contact there, and then he has to force his way inside those tyres, doesn't he?
Nearly got hung out there, yeah, exactly. And that's how Filippi got into De Bustier.
Yeah, Filippi couldn't turn enough and tagged De Bustier. Lopez jumping his way through Brunchen. And then on the back of the lead group is still Mehdi Benani. Then Gabriele Tarquini, Ugo Valente shaping up on the inside, taking a tighter line over the jump on the exit of Brunchen as they run down towards Flansgarten. Ted Björk all over the back of Sabine Schmitz. Again, very quick, high-speed run here up towards the two big lefts at Schwalbenschwanz. A fast right before it. And then over the brow. And then through the mini carousel. And the lead group starting to stretch out a little. You can see the first yellow car, Nicky Katzberg. And behind him, Mehdi Benani dropping away. Ted Björk looking to try and find a way past Sabine Schmitz, and that is coming up now. Down the 2 kilometre long straight from the beginning, which is just outside the village of Döttingen, up to Nürburg, the Döttinger Höhe. And Jose Maria Lopez charging away on his own. Second place, Norbert Michelitz. Third, Tom Chilton closing in from behind. And this is Chilton's chance. He's dropped Rob Huff. He's not going to make it through before they get to the kink, and nor is Ted Björk. Pulls out the slipstream and then hits maximum RPM, can't go any quicker. Valente, this was his opportunity to get by Tarquini, couldn't get close enough. That's where Hugo had a tyre let go and a huge accident in qualifying. Fortunately, without much damage to the car or any injury to him, but it was a spinning top kind of an accident. Lopez comes across the line, 3 seconds clear of the battle for second, which is now Michelitz, Chilton, Huff, quick as you say it, across the line. Well, Lopez is gone. He can't take it easy because this is not a track on which you can take it. Ozzy and Ekblom down the inside, goes by Valente and keeps the spot, so he's up to 8th. And a frustrated Hugo won't like that. Ted Björk trying to get around Sabine Schmitz.
Of course, Hugo's been in the wall twice through punctures this weekend already, so he's very much going to be on eggshells until he sees the checkered flag on that front.
Well, Björk keeping his nose on the inside there on the run from turn 2. Down the hill they come, and he got by Sabine Schmitz on board with Hugo. Down into the first corner, the Volvo deep and late. And because we're not going hard right and around the big loop at the Mercedes Arena, that's a motorcycle-style block pass. Throw it at the first apex. Doesn't matter how slow you are from 1 to 2, they still can't get past you on the inside, and it's too far around the outside.
Threw Hugo a little bit of a dummy there as well. He got nicely on the left-hand side, so when Hugo's last check of the mirror, he would have been on the left before going across to the right and nailing him on the brakes into turn 1.
And good move by Björk, used a lot of curb to make sure he didn't run out wide into Sabine Schmitz. On the run down the hill, he picked up a spot as well, so both Volvos moved up. Meanwhile, Jose Maria Lopez up at the top of the hill and heading towards the Grand Prix loop. Nicky Katzberg snapping at the heels of Mehdi Benani for 6th position. In fact, is that a change? Because at the line, Katzberg was ahead of Benani by half a second. Didn't think it looked like it when they were coming down the straight. Maybe he slipstreamed by him and Benani has repassed him. Whatever, out onto the Grand Prix loop they come. Don't forget, World Touring Cars and European Touring Car Cup racing at the same time on the same track. But the W2CC cars won't catch the ETC guys before the end of the race. Far too long a lap for that to happen. 2nd, 3rd, 4th all together. Then Benani 5th ahead of Katzberg in 6th. Tarquini in 7th under pressure from Ekblom. Now, can the Volvo find a way by? Might have a slightly better opportunity perhaps than Hugo Valente had, because he's not in exactly the same car, so it won't have exactly the same dynamics. He might find somewhere where the Volvo's got a little bit more of something, a little bit more cornering grip, a little bit more top-end speed, a little bit more pickup off the corner, something to break Gabrielli's defence.
Yeah, the Ladas have been moaning slightly about being a bit down on straight line as well, so interesting to see how the Volvo compares, but I would imagine that the straight line speed advantage of the Volvo will probably become apparent later on in the lap.
Sweeping out of the long right-hander at Arenberg, and then off down the hillside. And again, in any car, what you think accelerates quickly accelerates even more quickly down these plunges. And no matter how powerful you think your car is when you come out onto this circuit, the uphill sections certainly rob it of some of that power. Through the foxhole where Rob Huff crashed hard in free practice. And continuing on towards the village of Adenau. Again, massive campsites, huge constructions built by the fans on these bare hillsides. Such a festival of motorsport here, the Nürburgring 24 Hours. Out of Kallenhard, Mehdi Benani in 5th position, ahead of Nicky Katzberg in a yellow Lada. They're being dropped by the battle for 2nd place, but still it looks as though the Citroën of the Moroccan driver easing away. And Richard Coleman, you were saying that the Lada drivers felt they're a little short on horsepower. If there's one track other than Spa that's going to show you a horsepower deficiency, then this is the one. In fact, perhaps more even than Spa.
Yeah, 63% of this very long lap is on full throttle, so any engine power you're missing becomes very apparent, and that's one of the big key strengths of that Citroën. So you can see Benani starting to romp off on some of these faster sections, and there's just very little Katzberg can do about it.
Out of Exmüller, climbing the wall now, right up 300 metres of elevation up towards the top of this climb.
Synchronised flying from Lada and Volvo at the moment.
Yeah, nice little symmetry there. Of course, they'd like to change it so that the blue is in front of the yellow, and at the moment, both of them are looking to try and push on. You can see the boys on the Sign Racing Polestar pit wall. Here comes Ekblom. He's got a run going on. Gabrielli, where's he going to find a way through, though?
It's just almost impossible to get past on this section of the circuit.
Yeah. Flat in top here. Really long run through Kesselchen and up towards Klostertal. And again, both of the Volvos slipstreaming up behind the Lada, but neither able to find a way to get through. Oh, and that's why you've got to stay off the curbs here. These are not modern Grand Prix curbs. These are not motorcycle curbs. These are takeoff ramps. These should be on the end of the deck of an aircraft carrier. They throw you up in the air. Dropping down into the carousel.
Certainly didn't look like he was taking it easy either.
Well, you know, that's a misjudgment of an inch or two on the way in. Suddenly you have a big curb strike. And you'll note there's not much runoff area on any of these corners. There's too much forest for that. There's the battle for second place. Norbert Michelitz still in front of Tom Chilton and Rob Huff. And Jose Maria Lopez, again, margin for error is infinitesimal in his driving, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely well in control of his race.
And Huff, the man who might make the move, all over the back of Tom Chilton here. Huff with lots more track time than Tom this weekend, even after his crash in free practice 1 and in 2.
That's the thing with the Citroen, it's get out of jail free card, it's just got that bit more power, it seems. And despite however close Rob gets in the corners, when we got into the big straight sections, Tom starts to pull away.
Yeah, it's barely wide enough anywhere for two cars side by side. The driver you're trying to pass has to really be quite helpful, and that's obviously a factor in the 24-hour race. When you're catching slower cars, you really have to rely on them to leave the room. Some of the speed differentials in the 24 hours are absolutely phenomenal. Well, that's allowed Norbert Michelitz just to ease away from Chilton, so Norby and Pachito look as though at the moment they are solidifying their positions. Chilton, as we get into the mini carousel, holding off Huff. See how much the cars squirm as they pop out of that banked concrete corner. You just sort of jump out almost. If you're too hard on the throttle, you can go across the road. And now onto the big 2-kilometre straight. Once more onto the Dottinger Her, my friends, once more.
And that's the problem. Every time that happens, Chilton's got that degree of safety and there's just no chance for Rob to get by.
And behind, the car on its own in front of the yellow Larders, that also has that top speed advantage. But here comes Ekblom on Tarquini. He's got to make the move here. He's got to make it happen. But look, he just almost stalls. He's not quite close enough to get the side toe off Gabrielli. He gets into clear air and his speed advantage vanishes. Well, whatever the Lada drivers believe, they probably only have a speed differential to the Citroens, but then so does everybody else. Ekblom, though, has got by Valente. So it may be that Udo's car is a little big. I do mean Bjork's got by Valente. So looks as though his car has got a little less speed. Now Lopez leading by just a second, and suddenly Chilton's all over Norby. So what happened there as we were watching the others down the straight?
Just that tractor beam of the 2-kilometre straight, I'd imagine. I think that's the biggest factor there.
Yeah. Well, suddenly the top 4 are covered by 1.8 seconds.
Yeah, it looks like Lopez dropped a lot of ground then, actually.
Yes, he did, because he was 3 seconds ahead. And then that all, of course, he was on his own on the main straight, and he just got hoovered up by the cars behind. And that was the other Volvo of Björk going by Valente for 9th place. And he had a really good slingshot, and you could see in front his teammate Fredrik Ekblom didn't. Now Ekblom having to go high, wide and handsome around the outside of the Dunlop chicane, cuts back to the inside, but Gabrielli's seen that far too many times.
Yeah, Gabrielli, perfect car placement, then stop Ekblom getting him on the switchback. It's never going to happen.
Ekblom perhaps needed to keep his powder dry and try and get a run up the hill on Tarquini, the same way that Lopez did in the first lap on Norbert Michelitz. But Ekblom had that uphill speed advantage, and rather Lopez did, and Ekblom doesn't so much. It'll be a long 25 kilometres or a long 20 kilometres until they get back onto Dottinger Her and he gets another chance.
Absolutely, he's just got to time that run right. First part of the Nordschleife is almost impossible to pass unless Gabrielli's going to make a mistake of some kind.
Out onto the loop comes Lopez.
Manage your engine. Manage your engine.
Oh, okay. So that is his engineer clearly reading something that is starting to get up into the red on the data.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be when he says manage the engine, Jose will now be adjusting some of the mixes, some of the mapping to go for a safer setting.
So will that be richening it up just to try and cool the charge in the engine? Have to wait and see what that does to his speed. At the moment, he's about a second clear at the lead of the race. Fredrik Ekblom starts the final loop of the Nordschleife right behind Gabriele Tarquini, battling for 7th place. Jose Maria Lopez warned by the team to keep the engine under control. He leads from Norbert Michelitz, Tom Chilton and Rob Huff. And then the Lada group behind. Mehdi Benani 5th, Nicky Katzberg 6th. And the Ladas and the Volvos battling for the other positions inside the top 10. Now you can see the leader in the red and black Citroen, and then the battle for the other podium spots. Rob Huff has been all over the back of Tom Chilton's Citroen in the twisty bits, but has not been able to get by him where it counted, or indeed at any stage. And there goes Ekblom up the inside, gets by Tarquini. Gabriele getting in a little hesitantly perhaps, and that was at the end of the Kudebacher, I think. Ekblom on that long fast stretch early in the lap, towing up behind him.
Just muscled his way through by the looks of it.
Yep. And that was, yeah, so here we are in Schwedenkreuz. So that was definitely on the end of that. That's a sort of opening straight, really, on this. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was down into Arenberg, so it was a little later in the lap. Gabriele getting in a little late on brakes. There's a rare mistake there in Gabriele Tarquini's defence. He doesn't give many places away.
Ekblom did not need to be asked twice there when Gabriele ran a fraction wide, just enough for a car to get through. Nothing wrong with that.
Almost wide enough. Yeah, on the Nordschleife, a third of a chance is all you're ever given. Never mind half a chance. And Tarquini will be annoyed there that he just ran a fraction wide. Here's our leaders then. Lopez, about a second in front of Michelitz, Chilton and Huff. And they have got another 20-odd kilometres of demanding, twisty track to go.
Chilton's probably got a chance here to make this a Citroen 1-2, to be honest. He just needs a run onto the last final straight onto Dockenger.
Yep.
And he might have a chance of making this a Citroen 1-2 and repeating the result of race 1.
Dropping all the way down the hill here and then starting the big climb again. And you know, so many of these corners, you carry a lot of speed in, but you have to brake earlier than you think you need to because it's so important to get the drive on the way out. You can carry so much speed in so late and then be absolutely flat on the way up the hill, and everybody will come streaming by you.
Yeah, very much about rhythm, this circuit. If you get one corner wrong, it can punish you for the next 6-7 corners.
Yeah, 2 or 3 kilometres. So some of these climbs, you know, if you get it wrong at the bottom, you're going to lose a hatful of positions all the way up the hill. And here's another one. Again, the helicopter makes this just look like it's a fairly flat drive. On board, this is one of the steepest sections of any racetrack anywhere. Ted Björk with the advantage, up behind Gabriele Tarquini. He's looking to try and go the long way round the outside, and Gabriele just disabuse him of that thought. Takes the line away. Tarquini, though, see, he said he was going to try and be conservative, but you still see the back of the Lada moving around over these bumps.
Yeah, the Volvo's looking very racy in this race, that's for sure. A few problems in the first race, but yeah, both keen to make up for lost time.
Leaders dropping into the carousel, and Norby can now smell the exhaust of Jose Maria Lopez. Lopez being cautious. Ted Björk, the Volvo still chasing the Lada. But Fredrik Ekblom has yellow in his sights as well. Are they going to get close enough? I think Nicky Katzberg is probably far enough away on the straight.
The power of those Citroen is ridiculous.
And there is the argued assessment of the world champion, or former world champion, Rob Huff. And, you know, this is almost like when we had the normally aspirated cars. chasing the turbo diesel Seats that were slow in the corners and then just go whoosh on the boost away from you as soon as they pick up the throttle. They blunt your mid-corner speed and then drive away on exit speed.
There's nothing more frustrating than a racing car driver to make up all the time in the skill of all the corners, only to then lose every gain he's made by getting onto the straight.
Little overlap there. Oh, and this is not a place to be making contact lightly with a car. But Huff is desperate to get through. There's the first of the jumps as they come out of Wipperman. And look at this from bumper cam. The driver's eyes not an awful lot higher than this, maybe another half a metre or so, but you really are driving blind here. Knowledge is so important, and Huff has got that. But look behind him. Just out of shot in most of those camera shots is Mehdi Benani. This is where Rob gets right up behind Tom Chilton. Chilton just with that little safety brake there over the brow to stabilise the car. It allows the Honda to close up right up tight underneath his back bumper.
Of course, all of this is allowing Norbert Mikulitz to make his escape and looking to make his second place very safe.
Yeah, and on the Dottinger Her for the final time. I was wondering how close Norby would be, and the answer is not even remotely close enough. He's in second. Chilton pulls away comfortably in third, and Huff may be in danger. Look behind, the fifth car in the queue. That's Mehdi Benani. He's got the Citroen's top speed. Here come the Volvos, though. Ted Björk closing up behind Tarquini. He's going to have to leave it to the last second when they get on the brakes. If he pulls out early, will he have the overlap? He does. Will he get back in front? He should do, and Gabrielli will tuck in behind him and then try and get the braking right and see if there's not something to be had after they come through Antonius Bucher and down into Tiergarten and Hohenrhein. Out of the final corner comes Jose Maria Lopez, and it is going to be his second win here on the Nordschleife this weekend, his third in 4 starts.
Fantastic.
Not only is that a great weekend for Lopez points-wise, but it's also been a bad weekend for his main rivals. So I think he's got a lot to celebrate tonight.
Absolutely, he has. Thiago Montero 2 zeros, Ivan Muller 2 zeros in the top 6. Rob Huff takes a 4th and a 4th. Mehdi Benani gets 2 top 5 finishes as well. But the big winner this weekend in the top half dozen is Norbert Mikulitz. His first season as a factory-paid driver, and he now closes right up on Thiago Montero with a 2nd and a 3rd. That's 18 and 15, which is 28, 32 points. And that moves him from 85 to 112. He'll be 12 points behind Thiago. So he closes right up. The championship leader, though, our double world champion Jose Maria Lopez, has 2 wins under his belt. Marie-Pierre Rossi and the rest of the Citroën team fairly emotional with that. And where's Ted Björk parked? Didn't see, he has crossed the finish line. Looks like he's parked it somewhere on the Grand Prix loop. Got ahead of Gabriele Tarquini, much to the approval of the Cyan Racing Polestar team.
Pulled out very late there. That was the key to getting that move done. We saw earlier one of the Volvos pull out and just stall in the air. He left the momentum to right to the last second to pull out.
Well, you have to, don't you? You see it sometimes at Spa. If somebody carries too much speed into Eau Rouge, make the pass out of Raidillon and on early on the Kemmel Straight, the other guy drops into the slipstream and can repass him before he gets to the top of the hill at Les Combes. So, yeah, he had to judge it right, but he also had to make sure that A, he got by Tarquini, and B, that Gabrielli had no way to get by him. But for Jose Maria Lopez, 2 race wins on the Nordschleife, a stunning weekend. Well, big win here for Jose Maria Lopez. The perfect weekend, 55 points added to his tally. And that is just an astonishing performance on the most difficult, demanding, dangerous, high-speed roller coaster race circuit on the planet. a remarkable testament to his speed, his ability, and his ability to get the best out of himself in the car pretty much at any opportunity.
Hasn't got a contract for next year either, so I'm sure the price is just going up and up, because I'm sure he's going to find himself a top seat.
Yes, it's hard to imagine a talent like his being left on the sidelines. And I can imagine there might be a few DTM teams looking at him going, wow, what would he do in one of our cars? And there must be a lot of people in GT racing looking at Lopez going, okay, I think he might have what it takes to be a big GT race winner. Well, Tom Chilton, big weekend for him as well. Second in race 1, third in race 2. He and Norby have both scored strongly. So Chilton will move ahead of Nicky Katzberg. He'll move ahead of Ivan Muller and close in on Mehdi Benani. But this weekend we will remember for a slew of high-speed crashes because of punctures, but on the other side of the coin we will remember the imperious pace and flawless performance of Jose Maria Lopez. Definitely starting to run out of superlatives, aren't we? Every time you think, well, he's never going to top that, he just comes out and does it again.
Yeah, he's definitely on his way to another World Championship, and it's just a very, very impressive run. I mean, he's just almost unbeatable at the moment, you would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And adding to that is all of his closest rivals, the pursuing half dozen 7-8 drivers, are taking points off each other. One will win here, one will get a big weekend there, and then there's more zeros appearing in their columns. Yeah, Petito failed to score in race 1 in Hungary. And I'm saying now that might be his only zero of the season.
Also, thankfully, no punctures in that race.
Yep.
Which is even more important than the result, really.
Yep. Well, I'm sure everybody joins us in wishing the very best to Thiago Monteiro. I'm sure that the hospital will give him a clean bill of health. A second and a third for each of those guys. Big weekend for Tom Chilton, big weekend for Norbert Michelitz, but a massive weekend for Jose Maria Lopez. Look at this, Thiago Monteiro is still second on 124 points, but he is now 69 points clear. Rob Huff moves up to third, Norby is fourth, or Huff and Norby don't move. Benani stays fifth, Muller just sixth ahead of Tom Chilton and Nicky Katzberg. Tom Coronel, of course, failing to score, big crash in race 1.
It's only 4 points between the Honda drivers, which just shows you how closely matched they've been this season.
And how each of them has had a slice of bad luck as well.
Yeah.
You know, Norby had a pretty torrid weekend in Hungary. Rob's had, you know, one bad race, one good race here. Thiago's got a double zero in the column, and he's had some good races. But again, you know, they're all much of the same. There's one man that stands clear, head and shoulders above the rest of the field, and Alex is with him.
That's much more like it. The winner of the Green Hell main race, Petito Lopez. That was a world-class drive.
Yes, unbelievable to win 2 races here. You know, it's a dream come true. It's my, I mean, I was waiting to come here, but I never expected this. Of course, you know, my ceremony was measured and really quiet on the first race because, of course, when you win by another car having a problem, of course, it's not the same, but it counts. This one it counted even more because I did a very good stop, and Norby was flying out of the green light. It was really good. In fact, I was watching my mirrors and I thought actually he stalled. And I saw then in the first corner and I tried to push. We did a good maneuver. You always can do this with the clean and nice drivers. It's something you do in 2. And then I was trying to manage my tires, you know. I didn't know what to expect. I was a bit afraid of what happened first race.
Smile more, smile more. You got 2 wins.
Thank you. So yeah, I was trying to manage a bit in the parts that I knew the tires maybe could suffer. Finally, we won, you know, 2 wins with a heavy car. It's fantastic. For championship, it's very good. looking very strong again, and yes, I mean, a long way to go, but I definitely, these 2 wins, it's give me a big push for the championship.
And now you can celebrate. Thank you, Tito.
I'm sure he will savour this weekend among many other happy weekends in his life. But remarkable performance from Lopez. Interesting there, he said, had a glance in his mirror on run down to turn 1, didn't see Norby behind him, thought he'd stalled. Well, of course, Norby wasn't behind him when he looked out the side window. There he saw the Honda. Such a good start from Mikulec, who really made a race of it all the way to the end. There's no question Lopez could not relax in any way, shape or form. Well, that brings us to an end of the action here at the Nürburgring. Jose Maria Lopez leaves with 2 wins and a 69-point championship lead. Goodness me. Just, you know, everything is dropping into place again. You know, 1 year, fantastic. To have it happen a 2nd year in a row, you know, you can't believe you're riding your luck so well. And the 3rd year, when that combination of the best car, the best driver and good fortune all starts to add up again. You know, Lopez, we talked about this earlier in the year, didn't we, that he's in that position where everything that occurs to him instinctively is still the right decision because he's in such a confident place.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that that really shows. This is probably his strongest year. And the other thing is he just seems to be enjoying it more and more. Whereas every time you look at Ivan at the moment, you just question whether he's enjoying it as much as he used to.
Well, Ivan is still very sanguine, really smiling and relaxed outside of the car. In the car, I think he already accepts it's going to be somebody else's year, and those years come. Germany's Nürburgring, the 5th of 12 race weekends for the 2016 FIA World Touring Car Championship. We're 10 races into 24, and already we're now starting to contemplate who might be 2nd and 3rd in the championship. Is it that cut and dried? Richard, in motor racing anything can happen, but a 69-point lead means that Lopez can have 3 utter shocking weekends and still be very much a contender.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like you said, anything can happen, and it very often does, but I really think that this is, again, Jose Maria's year. I just can't see anybody beating him, and really the only person that probably has the equipment to beat him is Ivan Muller, who's arguably probably had his worst season so far during his Citroën contract. You know, combination of bad luck and just a few things not going his way, but also seemingly lacking a bit of pace as well, just seemingly unable to challenge at the moment. You know, the other guys, like you said, they're sharing the points out amongst them, and that means that even if one of them's having a good weekend, it means that the next weekend the other guy's having a good weekend, and they don't mount a proper challenge in that way. Whereas Lopez, it just seems always his weekend at the moment.
It does,
and that's why there's such a big points difference right now.
Great view from the top of the tower at Schloss Nürburg. Down below it is the town, small town of Nürburg, and just in the background of the previous long shot you could see the main pits complex where we are for commentary on this Nürburgring circuit. Jose Maria Lopez winning our main race as he did our opening race, and indeed the podium filled with the same drivers. Norbert Michelis moves from third to second in the second outing here, and Tom Chilton, who was second in the opener, takes points for third in the main race. And behind them, Rob Huff in fourth position. Again, started race one from 16th on the grid, got to 5th. So all in all, considering he had an engine change penalty, a 5th and a 4th, that's not a bad points haul from him. And that is the former home of the Dukes of Nuremberg, from which this region gets its name. Looking for Tom Chilton to complete the podium.
The race result looks a little bit closer than it perhaps would have been as well.
Yeah.
We heard on the radio that Lopez was managing an engine issue, and I think was just backed off to a canter just to make sure there was nothing that was going to stop him from winning that race. So although it's only 4 or 5 tenths over Michelis, I think in reality it could have very easily been 5 seconds.
Yeah, definitely so. So in fact the top 3 covered by 9 tenths. Rob Huff was only 1.9 back. Mehdi Banani only half a second behind him, so Banani, had he had a little bit more speed late in the lap, could have been close enough on Dottinger to really make a run. There is a victoire, Jose Maria Lopez, fiancé. Another successful weekend for them. Jose Maria Lopez winning one of the races last year. Started on pole position, and this season ends up with a pole position. That means 5 points, of course, for the pole sitter. And he also ended up with 2 25-point race wins. Tom, get off the phone and get on the podium. We're waiting for you live on air. Now, depending on which podium this is, he's got to choose which step he's on. This is the race 2 podium. So third place for Tom, second place for Norby. And it doesn't make any difference which podium it is. Jose Maria Lopez will still go for the top step. After a quick word live to Argentina. Carlos Tavares, the CEO of Peugeot Citroën. The big boss, the man who writes all the checks for everything at Peugeot Citroën. Motorsport's just a tiny percentage of it. He will be the team's representative. So, could hardly have had a better result. Congratulations again to Jose Maria Lopez, to the total Citroën Racing team. And of course, very disappointing for them, the accident with Thiago Monteiro claimed Ivan Muller very nearly took both of their cars out, and that might have been a real turning point in the championship. If Lopez had failed to score in either race, suddenly then some of the pursuing pack would have been a lot closer. But again, as he told us after race one, a couple of millimetres more than the width of a Citroën allowed him to get through on the grass between the accident and the barriers.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, his instinct was correct to go to the right-hand side. I think Ivan had the same instinct, he just had less room to evade.
Yeah, and there was already a Citroen alongside him. He couldn't go alongside because Lopez had got into the gap. And Pachito, you know, and it was the experience. He said, you know, he saw Ma's accident last year. He went off on the outside and immediately came back towards the inside, and so he was expecting that was exactly what would happen with Thiago. And so Thiago went off on the outside, which was the right, spun across to the inside, and then what did for Ivan was he hit the barriers and then started to come across to the outside. So Pachito had already committed himself to going outside. Ivan was hard on the brakes because he was much closer to the scene of the accident, and Pachito somehow squeezed through, and Ivan got tangled up.
That's where championships are won and lost as well.
And that is exactly right. You know, we're talking about tiny differences in driving ability between our drivers. You know, all of them are somewhere between extraordinary and truly exceptional, and it is the rub of the green that will make the difference.
Yeah, Tom Chilton enjoyed himself on the podium as well. He's had a probably best weekend of the season so far. He's done a really good job this weekend.
In fact, you might argue that this is his best touring car weekend ever in the World Touring Car Championship.
Maybe he's winning Shanghai.
Well, yes, that's, you know, but again, his, you know, again, straightforward circuit, Grand Prix circuit, and he absolutely made the most of that and beat really strong opposition to do so. But, you know, to be outstanding at this place, yeah, he'll go well. He'll be feeling very, very good about himself. And in a car that he'd not driven before the beginning of the season, you know, it's only his 5th race weekend in the car. Let's not forget about that. So, he, you know, to bring it here with lack of knowledge of setup and all of that, and really no experience of how the car would handle around here, and go out and be quick from the off, that's big kudos.
As we said, you know, you've got to beat the event before you beat the opposition here, because the circuit is so punishing, and that's where the first challenge lays. So yeah, huge satisfaction to anybody who gets a good result on this track.
No question at all. So Norby is putting himself right in the frame for a top 3 championship finish again, and depending on how things go, maybe as early as Moscow, he might even end up being the front runner in the pursuing pack. It is a really tight, jostling pack though. Tom Chilton is firmly cementing his place in the lead group as well after this weekend. So race 1, Norby was 3rd, Tom 2nd, and now he just hustles Pachito off the podium. We welcome him back on again.
Yep, just a bit of a do-side-do between the 2nd and 3rd place finishes.
And Marie-Pierre Rossi, who is the general factotum and queen of everything at Citroen Racing.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are very scared of her.
Well, oh, this is, I hear she is, for the first time ever on the podium, it is her last race with the Citroen team. And that probably means that she is heading to Peugeot. Here's our winner's national anthem. Hard as a rock? Yeah, right. Marie-Pierre gets the job done, no question at all. And this must, no wonder she was in tears at the end, didn't quite know that. But this must be a very emotional moment for her, because she has been part of the Citroën operation since Sebastian Loeb was in Super 1600s in the French Championship. She has
knee-high to a grasshopper.
A massive part of the Citroën operation for, well, a decade and more. So an enormous change of career path, well, not career path, but change of circumstance for Marie-Pierre Rossi.
Of Citroën is Mirko Hansen, head of organisation ADAC Nordscheife.
Now, Marie-Pierre, she has a certain reputation as being tough to deal with. She's not an easy touch, that's for sure, but she is always unfailingly pleasant to deal with, I find. And I wish her the best of luck in her new endeavour. A different suit, and perhaps a whole host of different challenges. Well, there is your podium for race one. Same race winner and the same drivers making the podium in both races. A big weekend for all three of those gentlemen. And Marie-Pierre may have to make a run for it if she's not going to get a leaving shower. Oh dear, well, there we go. I'm sure she'll put up with that briefly. Somebody will pay the price of that later on.
Always nice to go out with a win, though.
Yes, absolutely, and a double win as well at the track of tracks. Well, Jose Maria Lopez then, the runaway championship leader.
Congratulations, thank you very much.
And that brings our Nürburgring adventure to an end for another season. Thanks to Alex Legui. Thank you to Richard Coleman as well alongside me, and to our regular production team in the truck. And very many thanks as well to all our colleagues here at Vigor for the TV production and all the other audio and visual facilities that they've provided us with. We are here and enjoying ourselves enormously in their company on a bright and sunny race weekend at the Nürburgring, and I'm not sure any of us expected to say those words. Thank you for being with us as well. Next time out, a very different location. We're at Moscow Raceway on June the 12th. Catch up with the mid-season action from the FIA World Touring Car Championship in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, from the Nürburgring, from me, Martin Haven, on behalf of everybody here, auf Wiedersehen and goodbye.